So now our production planets, our two plasma planets, if you remember, have been going for a while. It's time to check in and see just what their resources look like. So here's our planets. Look at the first one. As you can see, extractors have stopped, and we're at about halfway full on our storage. Looking about 200,000 to 300,000 units for each of our two products. So at this point, we'll get our T1 input routes sorted out. So over this side and over this side. So we want our noble going there and our base going there, base metals. So let's just get those underway. If you go to storage, you'll see base metals, noble. So let's route our base. And don't forget, it will tell you if you are sending it to the wrong T1. So you create. Okay, I was happy with that one. So if we were to create a route through to here, no, that's not what it wants. Oh, it doesn't go there either. However, there, it's happy. So we'll get our noble metals routed to there. And to there. And then submit. Now, this will immediately draw 6,000 units of each for each of the T1s. 3,000 for the cycle it's just started. Another 3,000 on the input. Now, at this point, we just let these go. As you'll see, it shows its routes all going out to our launch pad. So we'll let this go for a day or so, just to start building up our reserves here, ready for export. Go to the next one. Same thing. We want non-CS crystals there. And heavy metals there. So we create our routes. Create to there. Then create to there. Create to there. And then create to there. So now these are all happy. They're underway. In production, 3,000 stored. In production, in production, in production. And so we'll let these go for about a day or so to start building up reserves. Here, we'll leave our extractors off for a little while, maybe half a day, to let the storage deplete a bit before restarting the extraction cycle. At this point, really we just need to maintain some reserves in our storage to keep our T1s going along at maximum speed all through to here. And then once we give it a day or so, Then we'll be able to get our manufacturing planet set up and then start the process of exporting from our 2 production planets, importing to our manufacturing planet, and then another couple of days of letting the T2s on the manufacturing planet go. We then get our T3 underway, and then our entire extraction through T3 chain will be in full flow. Now, it only took about a day to get the storage to here. Only about a day. It will take a couple of days for the T1s because they are on a fixed output. Same with our T2 and T3, they're on a fixed output. But due to the planetology and advanced planetology skills, we were able to push the amount that was extracted and stored a lot higher than was actually required. So we'll just leave these 2 planets alone, maybe give it another day, then restart our extractors to keep our storage full or topped up. And at that point, once the manufacturing planet is up, you just need to keep your extractors running, export and import every day or so to your manufacturing from our 2 production planets, and that should keep the entire chain from extraction through T3 going along at the best possible rate that it can. And remember, that's the secondary goal, not just T1, T2 or T3 products, but to keep everything running smoothly. Right, so our planets have now been cooking along for a couple of days since we turned on the T1s. Let's have a wee look, see how they're going. So we check our first one, and as we can see, still got a decent amount of base materials. So our T1s are being fed constantly, and we've got a decent amount of stored T1s. So that's very nice. Now, one thing I do want to bring up, and it hasn't been I haven't brought it up before, unfortunately, and that is while you want to keep your links short to minimize the amount of CPU and power grid they use, that statement should be expanded. You want to keep your links as short as possible while still making your extraction target. If you have to have a link that stretches halfway around the planet, but you get your 6,000 or 12,000 or however much per hour average, then that is worth it. Your goal here is the amount of extraction you're getting per hour, not so much the length of the link. So remember that. As short as possible while still managing to maintain your extraction target. Just something I think I should have brought up earlier. And we have a look at our second one. Look at its reserves. Still plenty of reserves. Still plenty of reserves. Now you may notice that this one is not extracting. Because it over extracted and had a lot of raw materials put through, I've let that one go silent. I've let it just sit there idle while its initial reserves are being reduced. This is more to manage the space here than for any other reason. I didn't want to risk having my storage overfill, which would impact this one, which is extracting at a lower rate. Also, one other number that hasn't really been touched on is if you sit on here, you'll see that about the middle of the screen, we've got 23.4%. That is the utilization of your link. Now, in HiSec, the chances of you saturating that link with the raw materials being extracted is pretty minimal, so you don't need to worry too much about it. Low sec, null sec, where the planets have much greater yields, then yes, you may need to worry about that percentage. If you saturate it, you're going to be reducing the amount you get. And if I sit on the link, you notice you've got upgrade link. So yes, links can be upgraded, but of course that will require additional CPU and power grid to manage an upgraded link. But as I said, if you're just in HiSec, then the chances are you're not going to need to worry about that, because it's not extracting enough to actually saturate that link. Now, with everything moving along nicely, let's set up our manufacturing planet. Now, as I said, as the manufacturing planet is just purely manufacturing, we're not extracting anything, you can choose any planet that you want. It's not important. Just the only thing you need to worry about is making sure you don't already have something on that planet. You can only have one command center on a planet. If you wanted to share a planet with whatever else you're doing, fine. But in our little example here, we're just getting one planet that's pure manufacturing. That's all it's going to do. It'll get imports, it'll create its tier 2s, the tier 3, and then we export from the set planet. So it doesn't really matter which planet you're going to set it up on, just as long as it's set up somewhere you don't already have your planetary industry going. Now, for the purpose of this, I've decided that I am going to set up my manufacturing on Toll 3, Temperate World. Now, I do already have my command center, Temperate Command, sitting here on my epithel. So let's go ahead, undock, and put our command center down on the planet. Now remember, you just need to be in space and in the same system to put your command center down. So we can stop immediately. Now, can go back to agency. We'll just look at your warp 2. Find your planet. View planetary industry. So here's our temperate world. because we don't care where we set up, just that it's set up. Just find somewhere, Command Center, drop it down, submit. Done. And we'll dock back up again. Now we'll set up the rest of our manufacturing complex, and as it's just doing extraction, or manufacturing I should say, you can get creative in just precisely how you set it up. Whether you want to make it look aesthetically pleasing or purely functional, that is your choice now. With the amount we're going to be putting on the planet, you're going to have way more CPU and power grid than you're ever going to need for just this manufacturing planet. So you can get creative, shall we say. So let's go. As you can see, we've got no industrial activity. Bring it up. First thing, of course, is upgrade to get the most CPU and power grid you can. And submit. So now how are we going to set this up? Go to Command Center. What are we going to put on here? Well, we know we're going to want 4 T2s, 1 T3, and at least 1 launch pad. That's our minimum. So, since we've got so much power grid, CPU, and not all that's going to actually need it, let's put down 1, 2 storage facilities, 1 for each pair of our T2s. We're going to want at least 1 launch pad, but let's go with 2. 1 for imports, 1 for exports. As you can see, our costs going up a bit. Now let's get everything linked. Create. We want there. Want there. We want there. So our little complex is taking shape. We also want our advanced, so we'll put that here. And we'll get that linked as well. Create. From there, there, and there. So what we're going to be doing is importing to here, distributing our imports, and of course we're going to want our T2s. So we want 2 of each. Submit those. So it's taking shape. Complete our links. There, 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 and there. So it's all taking shape now. Let's add in our schematics. Install that. As you can see, no input routes, which we can't do at the moment anyway, because we've got nothing to import. We don't know what it's going to do, so consumer electronics, create. So that's our two output routes. And our input routes will be coming from here. We won't be able to set the input routes until we do our first import. We'll set up our schematic here. Now, we've already done our consumer electronics. We want our mechanical parts. Create. And install. There we go. Now, as our T2s are not the end of the chain, as I said, they're going to be going from storage, manufacture to storage. And that'll be going from storage to tier 3 to launch. And so we'll add in our T3, robotics, and set our output. It's going to there. And there is our little launch, our manufacturing facility, all set up, ready to receive and ready to go. Now, if you look at each launch pad, you want to remember the name of your import launch pad. This is 4V NW4. This is 8V NW4. So when sorted in a list, your 4V should be the first one you see, which when you're importing, you'll just drag everything in there. Now, while we are going to be bringing in 4 different T1s, remember we have a cooldown on expediting transfers from the launch pad to the storage. And if we want to do another expedited, we'd have to wait out that cooldown. But we'll get onto that once we actually get our first imports done and get everything all set up. So we're all good. Oops, and as you can see, I forgot to do a route. Had I noticed that? You notice that anything with an output route is showing the little lines going to its output. I noticed that I forgot this one because there's no moving output line. Just something to remember. Create. Now that looks better. I can see where its output is going to. Now all that's missing are the input routes, which again, as I said, we can't actually set the input until we've got something to actually tag as an input, which we'll get to next once we start doing our imports. We'll finalize the setup of our tier 2s, and as with the tier 1s, we'll let the tier 2s chew on their resources for a while before adding the input routes for our T3, just to keep the manufacturing chain going smoothly. And now with our manufacturing planet set up, let's get our first imports underway so that we can get the T2s doing their thing. And in much the same way as we just let the T1s go by themselves for a while, we'll let the T2s do their own thing for a day or so before getting the T3 underway. And away we go. Now, if you're going to be doing a lot of imports and exports, there are some skills you're going to want to look at to minimize your expenditure. The less you have to spend on imports and exports, the greater the overall profit margin will be at the end of the day. So we've got our 2 planets. And this is just standard export import run, which we've already gone over. And if you remember, on the manufacturing planet, we've only got a single launch pad, but we've got 2 storage. And I'd address that. After all, if we expedite from the launch pad to one of the storage, we're going to have our cooldown. And at some point, we're going to need to get some of our T1s across to the other storage to feed the other pair. And given the amount we're going to be picking up, then you're most likely going to incur a significant cooldown on your storage pad. And away we go. Now, when it comes to the skills, the one you're going to be wanting is this one. As you can see, it reduces the import and export empire tax. Not all the tax on an export and import is empire tax. Some of it is the player as well. But it does reduce a significant portion of your tax. Okay. Now I was just checking on one of my other ones. I wasn't sure I actually picked it up. I'll just pause the recording while we get to Kemerk, as you probably just don't want me babbling on while we're actually going places. And I have addressed one of the bits I wanted to bring up. So let's get this paused, and we'll pick it up once we're actually at Kemek. And here we are in Kemek, heading off to our plasma planet, which has got 2 of our T1s, which have pretty much the most it can produce in the amount of time it's been producing the T1s, because we had our backlog / reserves, so the T1s could just keep on going and going and going without really pausing too much. And here we are. And here's our output. Drag it into there. And away we go again. Pick up our next load. And finally we'll bring it all in to our manufacturing. Get everything set up. And our T2's underway. And once again, as I said, we'll be holding off setting the input routes for our T3 until the T2s have had a day or two to actually build up their reserves of output, which will ensure everything goes nice and smooth with minimal chance of things stalling out. At that point you just need to maintain once every day or so with your imports and exports. As before in TAR, I will just pause this recording until we've got to our next system, which is Adoto, so it's still a couple of jumps out. And now here we are for our second stop, which is our second plasma planet. As you can see, it's still reasonable value, just for a couple of days worth of a T1. So a couple of days of a T2, even better. A couple of days of T3, better still. So we'll do our pickup. I always try to do that. Right, and now, time for the import run. And with that, we'll be able to get our T2s underway. In the next part of this little series, the T1 to T3 supply chain, we'll be getting the T3 underway and then doing a quick review on the entire process, from doing our homework and planning out what we're going to do, up through planet type selection. The general setup, I mean, your production planets that have set up is fairly standard: command center, storage, launch pad. 2 T1s for each type you're extracting, and 2 extractors. The basic building block, you might say, of planetary industry. And while yes, I could have had T2s on the same planet, because I wanted to maximize the T1 and extraction, it did not leave really any overhead in the power grid to actually cram that in there without having to give up something else. The trade-off: less extraction, could put a T2, but because we wanted to maximize the extraction to keep reserves, it did mean having to get the T2s off planet, and as we would have had to put the T3 on a different planet anyway, it made sense to put the T2s there. So Toll 3 is our manufacturing planet. So as with other imports, we'll just import it down to the launch pad, then head back to the station and take care of the rest of the operations and configuration remotely. Less time and space, less chance of being jumped, found, and or any number of unpleasant things happening. Now remember our launch pad. 4V is our import, 8V is our export. All there, across to there, and that's our import done. So let's head back to station, get things distributed.
Permission requested. Docking request accepted.
Okay, so we bring up our PI, as you can see, requires attention because we haven't set input routes on anything. So we bring it up. Here's our storage with everything we want to distribute between these two. So we'll expedite to there, everything. Notice it's now got a 4-hour cooldown. Execute that. Now, this side wants our reactive and precious. This side wants our toxic and chiral. Now, while I could set input routes from here, much like you would do with a single storage, have all 4 going off 1. But here's something I want to show you which is why I did it like this. Storage, expedited. There. Notice the same now. The cooldown on expedited transfers is specific to the storage you transferred from. It's not a global figure. So run chiral and toxic and execute. And so that's how we can distribute it. We've got our cooldown still on here. So if we click that again, we've got 4 hours to wait there. We've got 2 hours to wait there. And this one, because we've expedited to, not from, we've got a transfer available now. So let's get our input routes sorted. Precious, create to there. Precious, create to there. Same with our reactive. And now these two are underway. It's in production. It's got its input route. Same here. And boom. And now that's all underway. As you can see, they want 40 of each. We've currently got 3,200 of each in storage. So that's a couple of 3 days worth. As you can see, it doesn't take a huge amount of space. So we wouldn't need, say, a third storage for the output because we're not stressing it yet. If we start producing more and the storage starts getting full, then yes, we can add a third storage, change the output routes to go to the third storage, and have our T3 go from there. But as we want to let our T2s now go for a couple of days, as you can see, moving lines showing it's going to and from. Once it's built up a couple of 3 days, we'll finally get our T3 underway and have a review of what we've done so far.